Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple.
A modern-day classic was once again the focus when Pep's City and Klopp's Liverpool faced off for the Community Shield. Klopp's men were victors, 3-1 thanks to goals by Trent, Salah and new boy Nunez, whilst another new signing in Alvarez scored for the citizens. The XG did show that City were wasteful with their chances, but how Klopp was able to figure out the Pep puzzle was great. So let's take a look at the tactics. So as a reminder, both teams lined up with what was on paper 4-3-3s. And you can see despite it not being a league game, they both had close enough to their strongest lineups out, with new boy Haaland starting for City, whilst Liverpool were missing Alisson. And if you want formations like this during the match, as well as stats and all that other fun stuff, check out our video sponsor OneFootball, whose app you can get for absolutely free through the link in the description below. We'll begin with Liverpool in the build-up, as they were able to break City's press in several different ways. From goal kicks, City were initially lined up in a 4-2-3-1, with De Bruyne looking to tie up Fabinho, whilst Bernardo and Rodri formed a double pivot. So to help play out, Liverpool would split both of their centre-backs deep and extremely wide, giving their full-backs a little bit more room to build up higher up the pitch. And initially City were pressing well and could find a way around this. This is because with Haaland initially pressing, Adrian would be forced to play to one side or the other, and once he did, Haaland could look to cut out the pass across the pitch, and as a result, City could then press around the ball, limiting options and forcing Liverpool either long or to play it to somebody who's under a lot of pressure. Liverpool split Matip and Van Dijk either side of Adrian, and City are only pressing with Haaland, and his role is to look to cut out this lateral pass between Van Dijk and Matip. Haaland is effective in doing so, as this lateral pass can't be made anymore. And by defending with just Haaland, it means that De Bruyne can remain deeper on the pitch, ready to press Thiago if any ball does come into him. As a result, Van Dijk only has one direction to go, which is out towards Robertson. With Haaland still applying good pressure onto Van Dijk, as soon as it looks like the ball is going wide, Mahrez is ready to apply pressure. Robertson is able to receive, but he's under heavy pressure from Mahrez. In addition, we can see the positioning of De Bruyne means that the pass into Thiago is not possible, as he could easily cut that out. Haaland has continued his movement, so the pass back to Van Dijk isn't possible either, so Robertson has to look long, but because of Mahrez's pressure, he can block the long pass and it results in a throw. But Haaland's pressing soon became a problem, as he was not the most intense or disciplined with his pressing. So, we would often see the ball go to one side, and Haaland would make a half-hearted press here, so that it looked like the pass to the other centre-back was cut out. However, he wasn't actually completely cutting out the passing lane, so Van Dijk in particular was able to break the press. We usually think of breaking the press as moving forward, but he actually broke the lateral press by being able to bypass Haaland and still find Matip. So the thing to remember is that when Van Dijk would have the ball, City would be assuming that they could initiate the press as discussed, so the team would be shifted to one side of the pitch. But this one pass would now take several men out of the game and allow Liverpool to progress down the right hand side, and they often got into very dangerous situations. In the first example, we saw that Haaland would have been roughly in this position cutting out that pass, however this time he is late to arrive. As a result, Matip is able to get on the ball, and you can see that several City players were biased towards the City right hand side and are now out of position, allowing Matip to drive higher up. This means that it's now Cancelo coming up from left back looking to cover, so as you can see City are a bit all over the place. Cancelo is high covering, looking to make up for the poor pressing, so this means that now Firmino and Salah have dragged both centre backs across the pitch and there is space through the centre. So City look to adapt their pressing shape. Now instead of having just Haaland pressing, De Bruyne would join him in the press, but how Liverpool and Klopp adapted was by now using Adrian instead of bypassing him with the pass, so now they had a dedicated back three in the build-up, meaning they still had the 3 versus 2 advantage. So initially, if the City front two were covering more of the centre-backs and then looking to press in, it would look like Fabinho would have the space. At first, Pep tried to counter this by having a man in either Bernardo or Rodri press Fabinho, which would look like it solved the problem. However, this would have left City with the 3 versus 2 disadvantage in the midfield. So instead what Pep looked to do was switch the side to a pseudo diamond momentarily so that Thiago and Henderson would still be covered whilst Fabinho was also covered. But as you can see, the obvious problem this led to is now the fullbacks were the easy outlet options for Liverpool. So again, Pep as always was looking to adapt and switch to flat pivots instead. This would mean that the fullbacks were no longer the free men, but as discussed, Fabinho would now be free to receive the ball in between the lines and look to play out. And at times, as Thiago is slightly better on the ball, he could drop deep, pick up the ball and look to pick out a man higher up, particularly with Firmino often looking to drop. So here, City are pressing with a flat two of Haaland and De Bruyne. However, because Rodri and Bernardo are maintaining their discipline deeper, allowing these men to start wider on the fullbacks, means that both Fabinho and Thiago can receive in the midfield. So because of the deep City pivots, Thiago is able to receive in the midfield in acres of space. And now when the City pivots do start to press him, Firmino is free between the lines and can receive the penetrative pass from Thiago. So again, Pep was looking for a solution. So now from the 4-2-3-1, Haaland would still initially shepherd the ball to one side of the pitch, but now the difference was he would then look to cover the centre back, and instead it would be Grealish from out wide who would cover the second centre back. This would mean that both centre backs were being pressured, Fabinho was covered, and Henderson and Thiago were also under pressure. But Van Dijk has an excellent passing range, so he could still make switches out towards Trent, and Liverpool would make many dangerous situations down this right hand side as a result. Again, Pep is looking for a solution, so De Bruyne is remaining deeper so that he can cover Fabinho, whilst Haaland can still look to press one of the centre backs. Pep wanted the benefits of pressing with the front two while still covering Fabinho. As a result, Grealish has come in from left wing to look to cover Matip. But Adrian receives the ball as the third man, and Grealish finds himself out of position. Adrian can then look for the chip ball into Trent. So now Liverpool have Trent and Henderson between the lines. And moving higher up the pitch, City still faced many similar problems. Again, City would press with the front two, and the reason that many managers choose to press with the front two is it has the potential to be more compact. It also means that the forwards have less space to cover when they're pressing, so it can save legs. But again, Adrian became crucial in the build-up phase to become the third man, again giving them a 3 versus 2. Fabinho would be the free man and would see Bernardo often looking to pressure him, and City again switch into that pseudo diamond. This would give Trent and Robertson too much space, and as a result, City were struggling, particularly in the wide regions. In open play, City are again pressing with the front two of De Bruyne and Haaland. However, Adrian has become a part of the build-up three so that Liverpool can maintain their 3 versus 2 advantage. However, Pep did not want Fabinho to be able to dictate play from defensive midfield, so in this situation he takes a risk and gets Bernardo to push up from central midfield to try and cover him. When this happened, it meant that Mahrez and Grealish had to tuck in much more narrow in order to try and cover Thiago and Henderson higher up. So the City defensive shape could look like a very loose midfield diamond. And as we know, the weakness of a diamond is that it leaves space out wide, and again in this case Trent is able to receive the chip pass from Adrian, and he and Henderson are between the lines. And even if City were defending with a flat double pivot, Liverpool still found success out wide. This is because City were fearful of being overloaded in the midfield area, as it looked like there could be a potential 3 versus 2. So, when the ball was in central regions, City would still tuck in their wingers, and Diaz and most often Trent would move into the inside channels, forcing the City back four much more narrow. At the same time, Robertson and Salah would be providing the width, although Salah and Trent were interchangeable. This would mean that the centre-backs could look to play the ball towards the full-backs, who as we know are world-class. This situation was exacerbated when Liverpool had overloaded one side of the pitch. Again, Haaland and De Bruyne would often be pressing, not very effectively, and this would drag the City midfield across as they looked to cover. As a result, Mahrez would now have to cover Thiago in the midfield, and with Diaz tucking in, Robertson time and again was arriving down the back post in acres of space, so when he was found with the switch, that could be particularly dangerous. When the left was overloaded, City had similar problems, but in a slightly different manner. This time it was Trent from fullback who'd often move into these inside regions, And the difference now is when the ball was switched towards Salah, he's excellent in a 1 versus 1, unlike Robertson when he received in space on the far side. So this would mean Cancelo would have to come touch tight on him. And Grealish had initially been tucking in, covering either Trent or Henderson, but he was concerned of this 1 versus 1. Salah was looking dangerous in these situations. So he would often look to come across to create a 2 versus 1, but this time and again left Trent in space in this region. So when Salah played the ball back to him, Trent could either look for a cross, often to the back post, because as we discussed, Robertson was often arriving, but we also saw what happened for the goal. Again, because De Bruyne is not defending as a midfielder, rather as a forward, City are afraid of being overloaded in the midfield. As a result, they're looking for man-to-man situations. But of course, Mahrez is not a central midfielder, so if he tucks in, it means that there is space elsewhere on the pitch. Mahrez is still looking to take care of Thiago, so Van Dijk can look for the longer pass, and the forward has dragged Walker in, meaning that Robertson is now in all the space out wide. We would see similar on the other side, with Grealish also having to tuck in. The difference is that when the switch came, Grealish didn't want Cancelo to be 1 versus 1 against Salah, so he would look to double team him. This would mean that time and again, Trent would be able to find the pass if Salah came backwards and would have plenty of room to look to get his head up and look to do something. And just as importantly, Robertson was often arriving at the back post because, as discussed, Mahrez was tucked in defending. So we see all of this in the build-up to the goal. Mahrez is again defending narrow in the midfield. In this situation, Robertson and Diaz had rotated, but the principle is the same, so Diaz is able to receive the switch. Run it on, and again we have Grealish defending a little bit more narrow, so Salah has space for the switch out wide. Grealish looks to make it a 2 versus 1 out here, so Trent has space just behind him, and this time it results in a goal. But City were just as competitive in this match, so what did they do when they had the ball?